Keith Thurman, he wants the Crawford fight, but he wants 10 million. Crawford tweeted, he said, "Keith Thurman, you funny, making it seem like you wanted a real fight with the king, knowing you wasn't gonna get no damn 10 million. Look, when you ever ready for real, I'll be here to smash your ass. And for the stupid people that would think I ducked him, y'all go fall off a cliff, y'all stupid." He said that.
That's harsh.
Keith Thurman talked about that Crawford never fought some of the top tier guys that Keith Thurman fought.
I mean, this is where all this confusion went. Bomac came out and said that he don't want to go through the hassle to find sparring partners for Keith. And when he said that, people ran with it. You know, like, oh man, Terence Crawford ducking Keith Thurman. See, they're not saying Terence Crawford ducking Keith Thurman because of what Terence said. They saying Terence Crawford is ducking Keith Thurman because of what Bomac said, which is his trainer / manager, I believe. But you got to condone yourself in a professional manner when you talk about Crawford. Like, for example, Bomac. You know, Bomac, he was talking shit. Excuse my language. He was talking shit about Keith Thurman when he said, oh, man, he going to blame it on his injury. He don't deserve a fight. Crawford wants the champions. He won Manny Pacquiao. He won the Errol Spence. I don't want to go through the hassle and find sparring partners for Keith, this and that. See, he was just talking shit when he didn't have to. Because you got to be careful with what you say when it comes to Crawford, because he's a fighter on the coincidentalist. He damn if he do, damn if he don't. He's going to get criticized if he says the right thing and does the right thing. So let alone if he says the wrong thing and does the right thing. So what I'm pretty much just trying to say is, Bomac, all he had to say is, Keith Thurman priced himself out. How you coming off a loss and you requesting 10 million when you fought Manny Pacquiao and you didn't even make 10 million? Now, Keith Thurman told Crawford, you don't know what I'm touching. But we do know that Keith Thurman was guaranteed 2 to 2.5 million against Manny Pacquiao, guaranteed. Now, obviously, after the pay-per-view, he probably made like, you know, at least 7 million. He probably cracked the 10 million mark. I don't know. You know what I mean? But he lost the fight. So what I'm pretty much saying is, you know, you can't be requesting 10 million coming off a loss. But if Bomac said that from the get-go, like, oh yeah, Keith Thurman, he's requesting too much, you know, he priced himself out. And then he want to talk shit after, it's okay. But you can't talk shit to begin with without stating the facts to clarify that Crawford is not afraid of Keith Thurman. I mean, every person, even a baby in his mother's stomach, know Crawford is not ducking Keith. Let me emphasize why.
Yeah. When
Terence Crawford first moved up to 147, he called out Keith Thurman when Keith Thurman was still undefeated. And then Keith Thurman was talking about, he wanted to be Crawford's manager instead of an opponent. He was like, you know, you got to fight Jeff Horn. You got to fight Amir Khan. And then Crawford fought both. Then he told me you got to fight Kell Brook. This was like a year ago when Keith Thurman was still undefeated, leading up to the Manny Pacquiao fight. He was always questioning Crawford's resume. He says you got to earn it. At 147, you haven't proved yourself. But Keith Thurman didn't keep the same energy with Danny Garcia when he moved up to 147. He didn't question Danny Garcia's resume. He said, in fact, that I'm going to welcome Danny Garcia to the welterweight division. This is the big boys, right? But he didn't keep the same energy with Terence Crawford. Now, when he lost, he feel like, listen, if I fight Crawford, I'm going to make a lot of money. And if I win, I'm back to the top of the sweepstake. And Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman will be the topic of conversation instead of Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. That's Keith Thurman mindset, right? However, he's requesting 10 million. How are you going to request 10 million when you never made 10 million? Keith Thurman never made a guaranteed 10 million. According to Crawford and his team, they said that Keith Thurman wanted 10 million off the bat. He won 10 million. Yeah, he won 10 million guaranteed. That's according to Crawford and his team. Now, Keith Thurman, he didn't come out and say anything, so we're assuming that's true. So every time Keith Thurman has a risky fight, he requesting 10 million. 5 years ago, when people was pressuring him to fight Errol Spence, before Errol Spence was a champion, Keith Thurman was like, give me 10 million, I'll fight Errol Spence. Like, people were like, what? Man, calm down, Keith. You gotta say something reasonable. 10 million is a whole lot of money. And now he's coming off a loss and he's requesting 10 million. So Of course, Terence Crawford is not ducking Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman is simply outpricing himself. You know, you cannot request 10 million coming off a loss. Now, if he beat Pacquiao, then he definitely deserved 10 million.
Yeah.
But he lost the Manny Pacquiao fight.
You think because his name, Keith Thurman, that he feels like if he fights Crawford and Crawford is on top, that he should deserve that much?
But Manny Pacquiao was a bigger name than Crawford.
But Manny Pacquiao,
and he didn't make, and when he was undefeated and still a champion, he didn't make 10 million versus Pacquiao guaranteed. So why request 10 million from Terence Crawford? So I understand the frustration of Terence Crawford because he felt like, man, this guy's capping. He's clout chasing. Now, I do believe Keith won the fight, but he want to get paid against Crawford. I think he just want to get paid at this point because it's a win-win situation. The only issue is Bomac. You know, I like Bomac, but Bomac, just like when he talked about Errol, he likes to talk shit. So he was like, when he talked about Errol, he says Errol is living from check to check. And come to find out, Errol Spence is making more money than Crawford. Errol Spence is back-to-back on pay-per-view, and he's about to fight Danny Garcia. He fought Sean Porter. He fought Mikey Garcia on pay-per-view. So you're talking about Errol Spence living from check to check, but he actually making more money than Crawford at this point. So Bomac is known for talking shit. However, when you're dealing with a guy on the coincidental list, there's damn if he do, damn if he don't, you got to hold yourself in more of a professional manner. You know, you got to condone yourself in a professional manner and just state the facts, you know, because you don't got to make excuses for Crawford. Crawford is a dog. You don't got to make excuses for him. But because he talked shit instead, the decafs ran with it. I actually had a debate with one of my AKHis on Split Decision, episode 50, right? He called in claiming that Crawford is ducking Keith Thurman based on what Bomac had to say, and the Keith Thurman call out, claiming that he's going to sign the contract on live, right? Now, I asked him a simple question. I said, because was the same guy defending Canelo Alvarez for ducking Andrade and Charlo.
Yeah.
So I asked him a simple question. I was like, so you saying that Crawford is ducking Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, but with the same breath, you defending Canelo Alvarez for ducking Charlo and Andrade, and then that's when I backed him to a corner. He admitted that Charlo and Andrade are being ducked by Canelo. He admitted Canelo is ducking. So after I was done with that, I was like, okay, Canelo, he never called out Charlo and Andrade. Matter of fact, he surrendered his title. So if Andrade and Charlo coming off losses, would you say Canelo is ducking them when they coming off losses? Absolutely not. Yeah. And he agreed, right? He agreed. So how can you say with the same breath Crawford is ducking Keith Thurman and Sean Porter when they both coming off losses? They both coming off losses. Now, you got to keep in mind, Crawford called out Keith Thurman as soon as he came to the division. He lost interest in Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman, he brushed him off and then he lost. So Crawford was like, what goes around, come back around. Now you getting played, right? So Crawford just felt like this man just want to clout chase off of me. He want to request money that he never made before coming off a loss. And now when he's coming off a loss, he want to fight me. But when he was coming off a win, when he was winning, when he was still undefeated, he didn't fight me.
Because now he feels like there's no pressure. Even if he loses, he's still making money against Crawford. And now that he lost to Pacquiao, there's not as much pressure as to stay undefeated.
Yeah, and it will hurt his career, though, if he loses again to
Crawford.
If he loses back-to-back, you know.
I mean, if he lost to Pacquiao.
Yeah, then people are going to expect you to lose to Crawford.
Yeah.
As long as you put up a good fight, people are going to give you credit. And that's what I'm saying. Crawford is in a tough situation, and Bomac put him even in a tougher situation because people, when they come in to debate me, they're not debating me based on what Crawford had to say. They debating me based on the point that Bomac made, which is, I don't want to go through the hassle of finding sparring partners. But if you're going to say that, what's that mean? Is Crawford going to wait till he fights a Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence? Does that mean he's not going to fight or have a tune-up before he fights the likes of Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao? You mean he's going to sit on the shelf and fight nobody? Absolutely not. Crawford is going to have to stay busy, right? So are you going to find sparring partners for Kell Brook but not Keith Thurman? So that's when the fans find a way to criticize Crawford.
Saying he was scared.
Yeah, when there is no room to criticize, it's just that Bomac, like I said, Bomac just he just like to talk shit. You know, ain't nothing wrong with that, but just state the facts. Say Keith Thurman requested too much money. He never made 10 million. How you going to request 10 million coming off a loss and then talk shit? Excuse my language, but that's what Bomac pretty much like to do. So, like I said, I think it's Bomac who put Crawford in a tough situation. So Bomac have to be careful with what he says next time. Because like I said, again, Crawford is on the coincidental list. He's damn if he do, damn if he don't. He already get criticized for doing all the right thing and saying all the right thing. So even if he's doing the right thing, but saying the wrong thing, they still gonna criticize him. They still gonna act a fool and act like Crawford is scared he's ducking. Well, how he ducking Keith Thurman? Now, what I would suggest though is that Terence Crawford make a counter offer to Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman made the comment, which was, "Hey, send me a contract. Watch I sign it on live." Yeah. Now, I don't blame Keith Thurman for sending a $10 million offer to Crawford, or I mean, excuse me, a request, because if you're going to fight Crawford, that's a high risk fight. So you want to make as much money as you can. So I don't. We don't know what was the.
He didn't send him a contract before. He sent him a contract.
Yeah, Crawford.
Any more zeros.
Crawford sent Keith Thurman a contract before, but I excuse Keith Thurman for turning down that contract because he had a Manny Pacquiao fight on the table. So if I'm in Keith Thurman position, I would rather fight Pacquiao than Crawford, right? Even though Crawford sent him a contract before and he turned it down, I understand why he turned it down, because I'm being objective. Keith Thurman had a better fight on the table and even a less riskier fight. But what Crawford should do is send him a counter offer, because Keith Thurman has all the right to request 10 million. Doesn't mean he deserve it, but he in for a tough fight. He trying to get all the money he can out of Top Rank. So what Top Rank should do is send Keith Thurman a counter offer. Send Keith Thurman the same offer y'all sending Kell Brook. Send Keith Thurman the same offer they sent Amir Khan. They sent Amir Khan $5 million guaranteed and pay-per-view, right? That's a great offer. If Keith Thurman turned down that offer, then it's Keith Thurman's fault. So what I suggest is that Crawford and his team to send a counter offer to Keith Thurman to call his bluff. See if he's for real. Because requesting 10 million is you pricing yourself out. I have to agree with Crawford 1,000%. And like I said, I'm always being objective. I'm always speaking the truth. Yeah. But the message get lost in translation because these decafs like to criticize these fighters on the coincidental list for no damn reason. Meanwhile, they want to defend Canelo for ducking. So all I'm saying is, what Crawford should do, he should definitely contact Bob Arum and tell him, you know what, send Keith Thurman the same offer you send in Kell Brook. Send Keith Thurman the same offer you send Amir Khan, because that's a big fight. That's a hell of a fight, and I would love to see the fight. The lead-up is going to be crazy. It's going to be entertaining. The fight stylistically is a great fight. Obviously, I got to favor Crawford. He's pound for pound number one. But at the same time, Keith Thurman, he has one of the best resumes at 147. He beat Danny Garcia. He beat Sean Porter in a war, in a classic fight. And he has a great resume overall. Kell Brook is a good name, but Kell Brook, 3 years ago, he was blaming losing to Errol Spence on the weight. He said, I can't make the weight. But 3 years later, you still make the weight? How can you make the weight 3 years later? So obviously, Kell Brook and his fans were just making excuses. But you got to be careful with what you say. What goes around, come back around. And that excuse came back to haunt him during Crawford negotiations, because now it's making him look bad. People ain't taking Kell Brook too serious. People like, you know what? Kell Brook, you know, you got to do something before calling out Crawford. Now, if Crawford is not going to fight Keith Thurman, then Kell Brook's still a good name, but I will prefer a Keith Thurman. However, I won't fault Crawford if Keith Thurman is requesting 10 million. Yeah, because he's out of line. Like I said, he did the same thing with Errol Spence. You know, he was saying that I'm cool with being the second best. And that's the issue in the sport of boxing, that, you know, back in the day, the golden era, for example, you had Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, Hearn, Duran, all fought each other. True. Errol Spence's and the PBC fighters, I'm not just going to say Errol Spence, the PBC fighters, and mainly Errol Spence, he's fighting the best competition back to back to back. And PBC fighters fought each other. From Danny Garcia to Sean Porter to Keith Thurman and Errol Spence, they all fought each other. Right? Yeah. Bomac stays to be corrected, because he said, why will we go to PBC if those guys ain't fighting each other? He made that statement a couple years back. And look today, he stays to being corrected, because if you look at the landscape at the welterweight division on the PBC roster, they all fought each other. And Top Rank, he's not included in the party. And Bradley at the time, he came out criticizing the PBC fighters. He called out the PBC fighters. He trashed the PBC fighters. He said that PBC fighters, you know, they need to basically come see Crawford, quit ducking Crawford, quit treating Crawford like the boogeyman, as he was the boogeyman, right? But then come to find out that he got an invitation. Sean Porter is entertaining the fight. You know, Crawford said if he wanted, he could get it, but he's just coming off a loss. He'd rather have fought him if he was still a champion. I respect that. I definitely give him a pass for that. Now, Keith Thurman, he pricing himself. I understand that, but still, Bob Arum need to negotiate. That's part of negotiations. You need to go negotiate back and forth and try to get a deal. If Keith Thurman won't fight Crawford for the same deal Amir Khan got or Kell Brook got, then move on. And people can't criticize you no more. However, Crawford leaving himself to be criticized because they won't send Keith Thurman a counter offer to basically call out his bluff. We want to know if Keith Thurman is true. I believe he will sign the contract. We won't know till we see it, right? So Crawford should send a counter offer. Like I said, the $10 million is definitely a cop out. $10 million is definitely overpricing himself.
We'll see what's gonna happen.
So drop in the comment section. Do you guys believe that Keith Thurman is pricing himself, requesting $10 million guaranteed to fight Crawford, or is he worth $10 million coming off a loss when he didn't make $10 million guaranteed versus Manny Pacquiao? RJ said Crawford should put a haircut clause in for Keith Thurman. Taco K said, I will fight for $10 million. I'll fight Crawford for $10 million myself if I could get it. Jali said that he think he a pay-per-view star. Taco K said for $1 million. So OG Swag said $10 million is too much.
It's hard to see after the past two fights. It makes sense why people don't.
So, like I said, people are pretty much agreeing with everything that I stated. Mitchell says, yes, he is. Shoot for $5 million and get it done. I agree with that. That's in the middle. You know, shoot for $5 million and make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So,
okay.
Hold on, let me play for all the details. Because T-Tone pulled up and he got knocked out on split decision last episode.
You better not
and T-Tone, since you don't know shit about boxing,
better not
don't duck the question next time. Don't duck the question. He couldn't even name Canelo next opponent that he requested. Vini, that's his name, T-Tone. Since you don't know his name, you could have won the debate. I gave you a quick pass to win the debate. Even though you got knocked out, I gave you a shortcut. It's all goody, man. RJ stated, that's how negotiations go. Start high and agree upon something reasonable. Yep, I agree.
Hold it, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world. I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the Bungle fight. Thanking you.
They call me the problem, but you could call me the can man, because anybody can get it.